Welcome along to the Runner by Runner Derby preview. I'm Joshua Stacey. I'm joined alongside flat outs Joey Laver and Jack Nicol to preview every single runner in the 2024 Betfred Derby. 16 declared. We've got plenty of ground to cover. The ground is currently good to soft, and we're not going to waste any time. Lads, let's commence. The race starts at 4:30. Number one is Ambient Friendly. Joey, he finished a good way behind Ancient Wisdom as a 2-year-old. He was very keen in the Derby trial at Lingfield, but clearly benefited for this step up and trip. Can he get away with that running style here?
I think he can. He ran a massive time figure over near enough the Derby trip at Lingfield, so that's certainly a real positive for him. I think he has a really likeable attitude, that's for sure. I think the ground can do what it wants really as well, because in general, in his family, there's plenty of soft ground form, especially the Dams one and heavy ground, the St. Cloud Maiden. So I think he makes a lot of appeal as an each way option in this race. I mean, being by Glen Eagles as well, there's a lot to like, and I especially like that Lingfield Derby trial because you're going up and down. You find out if you have a balanced horse or not, and it's a very similar topography as track to Epsom. So I think he ticks a lot of boxes. The question will be whether that change of jockey, which I never think is a positive so close to a big race, is going to be an effect on him negatively. But I think that's probably the only negative I could find.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how they get on together. And we're lucky enough to be joined here by Rab Havlin. Rab, you must be delighted to take the ride on such a fancied horse in the Derby.
Yeah, obviously it's very exciting. Really hugely looking forward to it. And, I've been getting to know the horse the last 2 weeks, and his preparation's gone seamlessly, really. So I rode him this morning, and it's probably the most chilled out I've felt in the last 2 weeks. So all systems go.
So, Rab, after 2 furlongs, ideally, where would you like to be sat on Ambient Friendly? Because obviously we know he can be a bit free. What sort of tactics are you looking to employ?
Well, you want me to divulge my tactics to the rest of the race, do you? Look, I'm obviously drawn 6 in the lower numbers, and he's a horse. He's not a sluggish horse, which would probably pose a few problems if he was a sluggish horse. He's a horse that can go forward. Basically I'll let him go forward and find a spot. We've I've already spoke to Frankie this morning again about it, and when the draw came out, and we'll discuss things with James and the Gredleys, and we've got half a plan in my head, and we just need to finalise things, but I don't want to divulge too many secrets.
Of course not, but it's always worth a go trying to get you to divulge plans.
Yeah. I think I've got a partner who's built for Epsom, really. He's neat and tidy horse. He's a strong traveller, so he looks like I can put him anywhere I want, really.
Have you changed anything in the build up to the race at all? In the type of bit he went?
I think they applied a bit when he ran a ring bit when he ran in the Lingfield Derby trial, and obviously that worked quite well. The first morning I rode him in a normal snaffle, and then the next day I rode him in a ring bit, and he was a completely different horse. So I think he's probably getting used to that different kit, and he's got a lot of respect for that bit, and he's just got an easier ride.
The favourite in the race is City of Troy. Obviously disappointed us in the Guineas, but was so good as a 2-year-old. Where do you sit with him? Are you looking forward to taking him on, or do you think that he's the main danger? What's your opinion on him?
Well, obviously, if you forget the Guineas, it's the only thing that's doubting in his mind. Aidan's been very strong in his views on what happened in the Guineas, and obviously he can turn horses round, as we've seen last year, and we've seen many times before. So he's an obvious threat. He's the horse that showed the most class last year at 2, and if Aidan can find a key to I think the trip is very key to him. He looks as if he kind of wants this trip. So obviously he's a main danger, but he's not the only danger in the field.
Great to hear from Rab there. The second horse in the Derby is Ancient Wisdom. Jack, all the form as a 2-year-old, but he was beaten 6 lengths in the Dante by William Haggis's Economics. He's not running here. Did you expect more from Godolphin's horse?
I think so. I think in general the market expected a much better performance. He was a bit keen early on there at York and the Dante. On ground that was probably quicker than ideal. We've had quite a few showers, obviously, over the last week or so. It is drying up until Saturday. That's probably not going to be in his favour, but certainly we're going to be on the easier side of good. I think there's lots more to come with the cobwebs blown away. In terms of breeding, he's going to really improve for 1.5 miles. Be a slight worry about the track. He's a grand big horse. He really has a bend in his knee. So any further showers would be a positive. But I really like his overall profile. He's a class act, obviously winning 4 of his 5 starts at 2. One of those was a Group 1. And I think there's a lot more to come. Charlie Appleby's won 2 of the last 6 derbies. And I'm sure they'll be hoping to get Dubois as first derby winner here.
Absolutely. Massive, massive chance. Ancient Wisdom. Number 3, Bellum Justin. I'm going to go back to you, Jack, as well. He was a hardy winner of the Blue Ribbon Trial in April. Clearly handles the undulations of Epsom. That is important. But is he going to be quite good enough?
I'm not sure. I don't think so, to be honest. He was limited to Maiden Company last year. He finally did win on his final start at Newmarket in a good race, beating Inisherin. He's obviously heading to the Commonwealth Cup on the back of a good victory. Bellum Justin, sure, look, he's probably improved very well for the winter. It was a good performance in the Epsom Blue Ribbon Trial. I'd be a little worried that form, though. It's probably somewhere below what we're looking for here. And I think it's a stretch to say that he'll be in the running to win this.
If you have watched Flat Out before over on YouTube, you would know that Jack zones in on these horses and sees if there's any value in them at the prices. So he doesn't fancy Bellum Justin, and I'm going to take massive note of that. But Oisin Murphy is going to be taking the ride on King Power Racing's horse, and he caught up with James Millman at Leicester on Tuesday.
Having had 5 runs experience at a track, he's going to be pretty battle-hardened compared to a lot of the opposition.
I agree with you, that's a fair point. And he won't be phased, or certainly we don't expect him to be phased by the preliminaries. We all know what Derby Day is like with the razzmatazz, the crowds and the long way to the start. So they have to get through all that, and with the expected big field and many of them lightly raced, it's going to pose a few problems, and I think I have the right horse to overcome the adversity before the stalls open.
Interested to hear from Oisin there. Number 4 is the big talking horse, City of Troy. Aidan O'Brien's champion 2-year-old. Disappointed, very, very disappointing. I think disappointed is probably an understatement. He was so poor, or so below what he showed as a 2-year-old in the 2000 Guineas at Newmarket. How do we judge City of Troy? He's obviously at the top of the market on reputation. What he's done this year probably doesn't justify being 7-2, or definitely doesn't. But this time last year, August Rodin massively disappointed in the 2000 Guineas, Joey, and he managed to reverse that around. How do you judge City of Troy going to a race like this?
Well, a derby is all about some element of guesswork, isn't it? You have a little bit of form to play with, that 2-year-old form, but there is an element of guesswork where you're looking back down through the field thinking, what sort of horse is going to leap forward as a 3-year-old? And the big question about City of Troy is whether he's going to be that. Is he going to be August Rodin, or is he going to be Pinatubo? Pinatubo was a fabulous 2-year-old, and obviously is not going to go up to the middle distances on pedigree like City of Troy possibly can do, but in terms of horses improving past Pinatubo as a 3-year-old, that happened quite starkly. And are we going to see that with City of Troy? And that is something that I don't think is factored into his price, that there are plenty of horses like that really do rocket along. But if you're being honest, Jack, as a 2-year-old, the form that he produced isn't that good enough to win some average derbies. He doesn't have to improve too much, does he?
He doesn't know, and his 2-year-old form is the standout. You're going off that Guineas run. I found it quite hard to buy into the excuse that he got upset in the stalls. He was the last one in. Didn't look like he reared up too badly to me. And you're then essentially going off his price, which is it's easy to back this week. And as I say, I think people are now latching on to you're going on what we've seen this year. And on the back of that run where he was beaten after 4 furlongs at Newmarket in the Guineas, it was a deplorable effort. And you're kind of going on trust now, and you really do have to be forgiven. Learning the stalls this morning, stall 1 for City of Troy, I think that's it's certainly not what they would have picked. And stall 1's going to be really tricky for Ryan to get over. They've got Los Angeles in stall 4, but he's really going to have to use a lot of petrol to get up in those first 2 furlongs into that first right-hand bend. And I think that could pose a problem for Ryan.
Joey, on the Flat Out podcast, you absolutely love diving into pedigrees. Is he going to stay this trip?
Well, I mean, I think, just on the visual side of it, people would look at the way that, he's he takes a long time to pull up in his races. So he hits the line mysteriously hard, but that's over 7 furlongs. We're asking him to go up and down hills and go over 1.5 miles. And as a little horse, Justify obviously himself stayed enough to win the Belmont. He's out of the Galileo mare. There's enough hope there that he will stay the trip on pedigree. It's just looking at him as a physical, he doesn't look like a 1.5 mile horse. And so you have to marry up the pedigree to the physical. And he looks like a lot of Justifies that we've seen, well, some Justifies we've seen over here. He looks quite small, Adam described him as quite slick. So for me, looking at him, if I were campaigning him, forgetting who owns him, I'd be thinking you'd want to step him up steadily to 10 furlongs first to see how he copes with that, rather than taking him to Epsom. It's going to be a lot for him.
It is going to be a lot. But luckily, our very own Johnny Ward posed that very question to Aidan O'Brien.
This time last year, you were adamant Augusta Rodin had a great chance of winning the Derby. Do you feel a little bit it's similar 12 months on, or do you feel that almost City, you had to put a line through both runs, I suppose, did you? Both Guineas run?
Yeah, I think so. Like, obviously it happened and it was a very disappointing run in Newmarket, but the same thing, we gone back and we adjusted things and felt what we had to do to change it, and that's what we did do. So a little bit like this horse, like obviously the run was too bad to be true, and Augustus was the same last year. Like those kind of runs, like when runs are that bad, they're usually not true, so it's like people say, when things are so good to be not good enough to be true, or too good to be true, they usually are not. And it's the same with them bad runs. When they're that bad, they're usually not true runs, so especially when we knew what he was able to do, really.
It's interesting. You've been profoundly, backing the horse since. I do get the sense that you haven't lost faith in the horse.
Oh no, absolutely not. No. And listen, the horse can't do what he did last year, and not to be.
Well, he hammered Hatem, and then Hatem ends up hammering him in the Guineas.
Yeah, that's right. Listen, it wasn't his run at all, and obviously there's circumstances there, like we spoke about. I think they were the reason for it, and obviously a little bit fresh and a little bit everything, and just maybe wasn't prepared properly.
And it'll be fun having him at Epsom, and that's exciting.
Listen,
it's good for racing, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And Epsom racing is all about opinions. Everyone has opinion, and that's what's important. And everyone has to voice their opinion, and who knows who's right. And then when you're right, you have to enjoy it, and when you're wrong, you have to just take it. So it's all about opinions, and who knows who's right or wrong. And you have to listen and respect everybody's, and that's what makes the Derby so interesting and unique. Stamina, speed. It'll be the ultimate test, really, and we'll all look on and see, and nobody's going to really know what's going to happen until he passes that winning post, really.
Number 5 in the Derby is Dallas Star. Jack doesn't particularly have a fashionable page, but did produce a mightily impressive performance at 50-1 to win the Ballysacks. On form lines through Illinois, he's in the picture. Is he possibly being overlooked at 40-1?
If you'd asked me earlier in the week, I possibly would have agreed, but any further drying of the ground's a big negative for him. He obviously sprung a big surprise in the Ballysacks. I think that could have been down to the heavy ground. Fair enough, he probably has improved bundles for the winter, but I think he could be a horse that is just going to be able to show his best with a bit of ease underfoot, and quite a bit of ease, to be honest. And any drying ground would be a negative for me.
Number 6, Dancing Gemini. Dylan Brown McMonagle retains the ride for Roger Teal after a huge second in the French Guineas. Is it fair to say, Jack, that given his pedigree, he should even be better over a further trip?
Possibly. As a Camelot, there's definite grounds there out of an Australia mare. However, this horse looks to me, he's got so much pace, and if he was mine, I would be running him on Sunday in the French Derby. We watch him there. He ran such an excellent race to finish second. At the half furlong pole, you're thinking, go on and win your race. And he did just peter out, which was a little disappointing for me. As I say, I would have gone back to France. I think 10 furlongs is a logical race for him. You're now going to have big stamina concerns going up to 1.5 miles. Yeah, and fair enough. I think Connections have always kind of had this race in mind. And good luck to him. Dylan Brown McMonwell's first ride in the Derby. Excellent young jockey. I think he's certainly going to be, over the next decade, a jockey to watch. But in terms of Dancing Gemini, I think he's got solid place claims. It's just about whether he'll stay. And if he does, he'll definitely have a squeak.
A first ride in the Derby for Dylan Brown McMonagle. But a man who knows exactly what a Derby winner's credentials are is Martin Dwyer, winning the race aboard Sir Percy in 2006. What material does a horse need to possess to go and be successful at the biggest race of them all?
Yeah, listen, it's Epsom is a very unique race course, and it's a real test of horse and rider. And you need a bit of everything to win a Derby. Obviously, you need class. Very important. You need to stay in a mile and a half. It's a stiff mile and a half, and you need a well-balanced horse and a horse with tactical speed as well to get you out of a scrape if you need to. So a horse has to possess a lot of skills and attributes to win a Derby. And you know what? If it was easy to win, then it wouldn't mean as much.
So Martin, you have like different horses every year. They'll talk about horses that won't handle the track. And last year, I think Arrest was probably a very good example of a horse that didn't handle the track, quite a big horse. You've got the likes of Emily Upjohn, also a big horse that did handle the track and went very close to winning an Oaks. When you look at a horse like Ancient Wisdom this year, what do you think about him would give you confidence he'd handle the track?
He looks like he travels well, and that's always a good start. If you're running downhill and a horse is off the bridle, it's really difficult. They can lose the balance. He's a strong traveller. He probably over-travelled in the Dante early on, so that'll stand him in good stead. And he looks a well-balanced, well-put-together horse. You never truly know whether a horse will handle Epsom until you try it. But he does look like he'll be fine. From what I've seen of him at York, I'm sure he'll be fine. He carries himself well. He's well-balanced.
Do you feel that going to the Gallop this morning, having a little spin around the track helps at all, or is it something that you don't put too much emphasis on? Because certain trainers do like to do it, don't they?
Yeah, yes and no. I've done it. I did it in the past. I rode a horse in the Derby. I rode him on that morning, went round there fine, and then he stumbled down the hill, and I eased him up in the straight because he injured himself to come down the hill. So it's not a necessity. And do you know what? Have you ever seen a trainer or a jockey gallop a horse on that morning and say you didn't handle the track and pull him out? It's a public. Exactly. So you know, you've got to go there and roll the dice, and it's a massive test. And some horses don't handle it, and some do. But I always feel you can roll the dice once.
Martin, the stalls were drawn this morning. City of Troy obviously has been the talk of the race in the build-up, regardless of whether he's trained on the size or whatever. What do you think of his stall in stall one? It's going to be a tough position for Ryan to come from.
Yeah, it's never easy. As a jockey, if you're given a choice, you wouldn't choose lower than 5 or 6. You know, in my opinion, you want to be drawn middle to high, or just to give yourself a chance. Because when you're drawn low, you almost have to use a bit of petrol to go forward and get your position up the hill, because they soon cross back to the left rail and you can get squashed and taken out the race easily. But having said that, City of Troy, he's quite nimble. He's got quite a bit of speed and a bit of tactical speed. So I can imagine Ryan will try and use that early to get the position he wants, and then hold it, and then give him a breather at the top of the track for the middle part of the race. And don't forget, Adayar won from stall 1 in 2021.
Yeah, it's a fascinating prospect, City of Troy. Where would you be siding with? Who would you want to be riding in this year's Derby?
Well, again, this is what makes it such an interesting race this year. You know, if City of Troy had bolted up in the Guineas, he'd probably only be facing another 8 rivals. But a lot of people have decided to run because they see it as open. And you can make a case for a lot of these horses that have won the trials, and Ancient Wisdom, who ran well in the Dante. But for me, City of Troy, you don't become a rubbish horse overnight. One blip, any horse can run a bad race. And he wasn't himself at Newmarket in the Guineas. He was rearing up in the stalls and was on edge. And Aidan's been pretty clear in the press saying he take the blame for that. And he said he will be a different horse come Derby Day. And if you go on last year's form, if he hadn't run in the Guineas, he'd be favourite. And last year's form is still there. It hasn't gone away. I personally think he'll come back.
Number 7 is Dearer Mile. On paper, Joey, he's only won a Windsor Novice. But does that tell the full story with him?
No, it doesn't tell the full story for sure. No, he's had some very good form, obviously, in the Futurity last year behind Ancient Wisdom. And if you're someone who likes kind of collateral form lines, I think with Ancient Wisdom, they're not miles apart. My big problem with him It's just his attitude. He wears the noseband. That seemed to help him out, but he hangs through a lot of his starts. He holds his head quite high up in the air. Now, you could say that's just the Camelot coming through him, but he looks a bit reluctant to me. And I wouldn't want to be riding him if he hit the front with like half a furlong or a furlong to go in the Derby. He'd be one you'd want to fall on the line. So I think he'll handle everything. I think he'll stay the trip. I'm just slightly doubtful about his attitude.
Number 8 is Euphoric. Look, we've seen Ballydoyle third strings win this race before. We're not definitely against that. We know it can definitely happen. He's 40-1. He's the outsider of all of Aidan's runners. Given the form with Los Angeles, Joey, has he got a chance?
Well, you'd hope so if you paid 1.9 million for him, which is what they did. You'd hope he'd have some chance of winning some of that back on Saturday. I can't really see it. I'd be big. I mean, for me, if I was going to be backing one of Aidan's outsiders, I'd want there to be 4 or so in there, where you're on one that's kind of going to get a decent ride from the back. He looks like he's on pacemaking duties to me. He's got a very nice draw from it from 9. I think he's been running in races that haven't suited. He strides around about, this sort of max stride about 2.3 per second. And that's the sort of thing you want from a real stayer. He's been running very, very steadily run races. And that Leopardstown trial has not been a hotbed for producing runners in the Derby that have run well in recent years. So for me, he looks like a pacemaker, and I could see him running a similar race to Changing of the Guard or something like in recent years, where he's leading them round with about 2 furlongs to go and he weakens into about 8th or 9th. But no, nice horse, and I think we'll see better from him over longer trips throughout the season.
Number 9 is God's Window, a sole runner for Team Gosden, Jack. 100-1 shot. Is that just a fair reflection of his chances?
I think it is, yes. Going over the winter, I think he's a classic prospect that you could look forward to, and he made the perfect start, winning by a good distance at Nottingham. However, he's since been very disappointing in the D Stakes in his trial at Chester. Quite bizarrely, they ran him a week later again. It was a really quick turnaround. He ran in the Dante, and again, they changed tactics, made the run in there, but he was beaten even further that time. And I guess if you were being very forgiving, you could say it was probably because of the quicker ground, the quick turnaround as well. Fair enough, take your chance here. But on the form of those 2 races, he's got quite a lot to find now, and he's probably one you can put a line through for all he's got prolific connections.
Number 10, Cambu, another outsider. He's won a Kempton novice, and I know that the trends at Newmarket for the first 2 British Classics were go and win on the all-weather in the winter, but surely this is a step too far for him.
It's very hard to give him a chance on the bare form here of a Kempton novice from December. He's been off the track for 178 days. You would have expected that Team Richard Hughes would have put him in a trial. I did believe that they were aiming him at the field, and for whatever reason, we haven't saw him this spring. It'll be some training job to get him to win first time up in any season, but on the bare form of it, he's got so much to find. Number
11 is the talking horse again. Los Angeles, money coming in for him on the week of the race, the Aidan O'Brien second string. Joey, fair to say that this is a really solid profile?
You have to say so. Unbeaten Group 1 winner. The ground should be absolutely fine for him. He has a good profile for the race. I mean, and I said, if you look into his stride pattern, he's got the perfect sort of stride pattern for a 1.5 mile horse. Aidan's horses have been coming forward for their first run, so you could forgive him for not being that impressive. He seemed very strong in the final furlong of the race, which I think was encouraging. And he looked quite nimble also coming round the bend at Leopardstown, which is, it's a sharp enough bend. It can get you hanging into the middle of the track if you don't like it to, if you're not balanced. And so I thought he handled that quite well. I think in many ways he's got one of the most solid profiles in the race. He's just been backed quite heavily this week, and so some of that each way price has gone.
Jack, you need a really hardy 2-year-old to win the criterium. He overcame that. He won on return at Leopardstown. What are you worried about Los Angeles? Is it stall 4?
Stall 4 was a bit of a negative, absolutely. Personally, I think this horse is more of a ledger type. I would worry that he might have the gears, certainly in those opening 3-4 furlongs, to get a good track position. As we know, City of Troy is going to be outside. I'd say they're going to give preference for City of Troy to go on from him. You've got Sadati in 2. He's going to probably go on. As I say, though, those first 3 furlongs, I think he's going to have to really show a bit of pace, which not sure he might have. And for me, I just worry if he will have the pace to get him into a good position. And I can see him getting going all too late in the day. And for me, he might be one for later in the season.
Another contender sits in 12. That is Macduff. Joey, it was an unlucky story for Rafe Beckett 2 years ago with Westover. Macduff bids for redemption for his team. in the St. Judmont Silks, a second behind Arabian Crown on return, a very, very fine second at Sandown. Is he going to really threaten those at the top of the market?
I think so. I hope so. Just to draw even further parallels with Westover, he ran in the same race as Westover. He finished second just as Westover did. And then he went to the Gallops morning as did Westover. Rafe described this horse as a horse in two halves last year. He ran well in the Royal Lodge to be not too far beaten by Ghostwriter following through. I don't think he's quite as slow as people have made out. He ran really well. I mean, I think Arabian Crown's I thought was probably the most impressive profile of any horse coming into the Derby this year. Unfortunately, he's out through injury. He was just behind him. Now, you can say that he wasn't really eating up the distance at the line that day, and I could certainly take that on board. But I do think Rafe will have trained this horse to come forward. At the time, I don't think race horses were going particularly well. Now they're starting to fly just in time for the Derby this weekend. He's run an okay time figure, and that was in said Royal Lodge last year. And he's just come back this year with an encouraging effort. And I think he'll come forward from that. I really like this horse. I think he'll improve for 1 mile 4. He has the class in his family, being from the family of Kingman. Yeah, no, I think he has a lot of things in his favour, and his stride length at 2.33 max again at Sandown. That's what he registered, is a very much something you'd expect from a 1.5 mile horse.
A glowing report for Macduff. Number 13, Mr. Hampstead. Jack, fair to say it's unlikely that he's going to break his maiden tag in the Derby?
Very unlikely. I think he's certainly bred for the job. He's a son of Galileo out of Daddy Lil's Darling, who was infamously bolted to the start in Abel's Oaks, didn't she? And Olivier Pellier bravely jumped ship. He's a full brother to Save the Last Dance, second in the Oaks last year. But as far as Epsom go, in terms of links and winning chance, that's as far as you can go, really.
Number 14, Sayadati, 66-1. Tom Marquand gets the ride. Any chance of hitting the frame?
Small chance of hitting the frame. Connections have done it with Khalifa Sat and Huyamal in recent years. Andrew Balding getting these big price horses in the frame. For me, he's got more of a 10 furlong pedigree, being by Anodin, a full brother to Goldacova. I mean, it doesn't look like a 1.5 mile pedigree for me. I think he'll be likely to lead, but I can't really see him really getting close to winning the race. But he might sneak a place in some way the race could pan out.
15 is Table Talk. Abdullah Al Mansouri also has Cambu in the race. They're both big prices. Table Talk is the shortest of the two. Is that his best chance of hitting the frame? How do you expect him to run?
I can't possibly be confident, can you? You know, I mean, it's just you basically pay 75,000 to give this horse a run. It probably says more about the race than the horse's chances for me. He looked professional at Chelmsford, beating very lowly rated horses compared to what he's going to need at the weekend, and I can't really see it. I don't think you make any case for it, really. 16
and the final runner in the Derby is Voyage. Richard Hannon, we've only seen him the once, but he was very good at Newbury. Is he just going to be a bit too inexperienced? I know he went to the Gallop this morning at Epsom, but is that really going to be enough?
I don't think so. I mean, I think he's got a lovely pedigree for it, Golden Horn. He was impressive, really impressive on debut, but for me, he got one smack when he was about a length clear at Newbury, and his head came in the air. He looked all green. It doesn't give me confidence that he's going to have enough experience. I mean, he can go to Epsom all you like, but they'll have had to have done a lot at home to really educate this horse. But how can you really fancy him? And especially as one of the shorter priced outsiders with very little experience, I can't really see it myself.
It's been a joy to go through every single runner of the 2024 Betfred Derby. But gents, this is the moment of truth. I need a 1, 2, 3. Jack, I'm going to start with you.
I think Ancient Wisdom can keep going on Charlie out with his good recent record in the race. I think Ambient Friendly, based on that Lingfield trial, I think that was one of the better ones. He was so impressive. He would be, for me, in second. And Dancing Gemini, if he stays, I think he can take one of the minor places in third.
Joey?
I'll have Macduff at the top. I'm really hoping he's going to improve. I've really warmed to his chances as the week's gone on, and the soft ground looks less and less likely for me. In second, I'm going to take Ambient Friendly. I really think that he's going to, he's got so much in his favour to be backing him each way. And I'm going to go with Dear a Mile to sneak a place for those connections that sneak places all the time in these big races in recent years. And I'm going to hope that he doesn't hit the front too early.
There we go. Well, for what it's worth, I'm backing Los Angeles to go and win the race, Ancient Wisdom to finish second, and Macduff to finish third. Thank you very much, gents. And we do hope you've enjoyed this back at home. And do go and check out the Flat Out podcast for all your flat racing needs.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.